Now, hello YouTubers, today we're going to actually put everything back together. So we've got the head gasket and head bolts. Now, I checked on the computer and it says we can reuse these head bolts. I'm going to have to clean them up and stuff, so that's not a problem. Some head bolts you can reuse, some you can't. Now, even if you can reuse them, you can always change them. That's entirely up to yourself, but these ones it says we don't need to, so we're not going to. Now, basically, like I said in another video, this is your head gasket. And what you want to make sure is, if it says top, obviously you want to make sure that's to the top. Now another thing is, don't put it on your head first. Always put it on the block, because it can't really get damaged then. Now these 99.9% can only go one way. So that's the wrong way, and as you can see, it won't fit. If I do it this way, it just, nothing lines up, so you can only really put these on one way. And as you can see, once you get it the right way, now obviously you can still move it, so you need to get it in line because there's still movement, but as you can see from that, it's actually fitted. So there you go. Now another thing you can do, I'll just quickly try just in case it's easy. You can see this little locating stud is stuck in the block. There should be another one there, but it's in the head. Now sometimes you can take these out. If it's easy, I will. It's not really a problem because it's still with it and it's not easy, so I'm going to leave it. It just means if you have two in here, it just stops the head gasket from moving, but as long as you're careful, you're okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take these to the wire brush and I'm going to clean all these threads, because as you can see they're absolutely terrible, so we're going to do that now. Now as you can see, that's all cruddy and crap. Now I happen to have one of these grinding wheels with a wire brush connection on, which are brilliant. So I was going to show you what it's like before. Now hopefully you can see the difference. Yeah. Now what you also want to do is just check all the threads. If any of the threads look damaged, then replace the bolts. And to be fair, this one looks good. But I'm going to go through all of them, and if any are damaged, I'm just going to replace the lot. But hopefully they're not. Right, we've cleaned all them now. As you can see, we've cleaned all the threads. But what you want to make sure is when you're doing it, only take one out at a time, because you have to put them back in the right spot. If you take them all out and clean them, you're not going to know what spot to go back into. Then you need new bolts. We're lucky in the sense that none of the bolts are damaged, and on the computer it says we can reuse them, so we're going to reuse them. So we have the head gasket laid down. We have it lined up as best we can. So now all we need to do is literally place the head on top. Now, before you do that, I know you can see a lot of old crud and crap and all sorts. I know you can see a lot of crud and crap and all sorts from there, but it's very difficult to kind of clean it now. You can clean obviously some bits of it, get a rag and wipe some bits and, you know, go in there, but if you start trying to wipe all that stuff out or put like stuff in it to clean it out, the problem you can cause is you can start blocking things. So what I suggest you do, the best thing to do is literally put it all back together, clean as much of it off the top as you can, but put it all back together, get old oil, put old oil in and let the oil clean it, and let the engine kind of clean itself rather than you trying to clean it, because you shouldn't then have any problems. Well, that's one. You won't then have any problems blocking up anything. So that's the way I do it, and that's the way I suggest. But obviously, it's all up to yourself. This is kind of the trickiest part now, to get this on top without moving anything, and it's just really a juggling game to try and get it on top. No. Now, I felt that go into the hole, which is good. What I like to do as well is just get a torch, go around the top of the head just to make sure that it's not sticking out too far or anything like that, like it shouldn't be. You can even then shine a torch down each hole to see if you can go all the way down without anything blocking, which I can. So I now know from looking at down the holes, looking around the top, that head gasket is now on square and straight and good. So that's a good thing. Now the next thing we're going to do is put all the rockers back on. We obviously took them off yesterday. Now I put them on a piece of cardboard and I marked them and everything. But obviously yesterday, as you will see from the videos, we had just a little bit of rain, as we normally do here. And of course I had it on the floor. And before I could do anything, the rain completely soaked the cardboard. So obviously now I can't pick that up, but I'm going to do it individually. So I'm just going to basically, I know this is the first, second, third, blah, blah. So I'm just going to pick them up individually and move them across. Just literally like that. So not the end of the world, but this would have been a bit easier if I had the cardboard above me. Now they're all in, and what you want to make sure now is they're just seated properly. They only literally, they don't clip in, they just like rest on top. You want to make sure that this is not like that, make sure that it's in the middle, make sure everything's sitting down. Because if these are wrong, or if they're not sitting properly and you start the car, you can do so much damage, it's not even funny. So it's no harm just to double check and triple check that they're right, and then try and not move them and hit them. Now we're going to put the rocker cover on, and in this particular one the rocker cover and the top cam is all in one unit. Now again, I know there's a lot of crud and stuff in there, and yeah, technically I suppose you can start putting cleaning fluid and stuff down and getting it out, but I'm telling you, there's no real point. Just put old oil in and let the oil clean this engine. That is honestly the best. Now, there doesn't appear to be any gasket that was on here between these two, so it appears to be metal on metal. So we're going to put it back on metal and metal, just for the hell of it to see. Obviously, I'm knocking everything off now, so I have to be careful. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clean that a little bit better and clean that, and then shove it back down on top. There's the blades. Now I think I just figured out why there's no type of gasket or sealer on this. Because when you tighten the head bolts down, you tighten this down. If you have a gasket or sealer, you'll have a bit of a gap, and that can affect the head gasket pressure. If you've got a gasket that's 2 or 3 mil, and you tighten them head bolts to a certain torque, that gasket's going to compress, which will loosen the bolts. So that's why I think there's no sealer. So don't put any sealer on this or any gasket, because you can affect the pressure of the head bolts. So anyway, we've cleaned it as best we can. Make sure everything's out of the way. That's not going to help, to be honest. Stay. Now, so all I'm going to do now is just literally flip it. Now you have to be careful you don't move these fellas to make sure that they're on. It's going to be a bit tricky, this, the initial thing. That's the wrong way. Might help if I get it the right way. Now, that's it, and it's located them 2 studs. Now there is a bit of a gap, and the reason is because it's now resting on the cam, so when I tighten it down it will set itself. So that's one good thing. Another thing I'm just actually thinking as well, you want to make sure that the pistons are in the middle, because when you tighten this down, if the pistons are up, the valves are going to start hitting the pistons. So make sure the pistons are in the middle. I know my pistons aren't in the middle, so I'm just going to turn the engine half a turn, and I'll know then that my pistons are in the middle. So I'm just literally going to... Now, I know them pistons now are in the middle, so you want to make sure of that. Now, it's literally a case getting the head bolts and literally putting them back, taking one off at a time, and just slide them in to the right hole that they came out of. Now, this is just a case of tightening them now. Before we're going to do that, we're going to have a cup of tea. Yeah. Now we're getting to actually tightening or torquing the head down. The measurements on this particular engine for the torques is 25 newtons, which is the first tightening, then 60 degrees, 60 degrees and 60 degrees. I don't know why they do it in degrees, they should just leave it in newtons, but anyway. So you get your torque wrench and you set it to 25 newtons first, so just move it to 25 newton mark. Yeah, lock it. Now, there is a certain way of doing them. You need to start from the middle and go out. Don't basically start from the end and go in. So basically what you need to do is you need to go from the middle. So you do this one, the middle one, that one, and then you cross them diagonally like that. And what that does is that will let it sit down fully properly. The first one's going to take a bit because obviously you've got all the thickness of the bolts screwing down and stuff, so the first one is always going to take a lot more screwing down. Now all you're going to do is literally go until the thing clicks. But I just want to get this evenly first because there's a lot of room to go first. So I can see it's getting there now, so all I'm going to do is wait for this to click. Close. Now, as you can hear that's 25 newtons, so we do the same with this one. See that? So then I'm going to go diagonally. Now we're getting there. Now, so it's the middle and then diagonally. It just means then it sets the head down nice and evenly and you have no problems. Now that's the first stage. They're all now 20 newtons. What we have to do now, there's 3 more stages and they're degrees. So we have to do 60 degrees, 60 degrees and 60 degrees. Tighten them in the same pattern, the same ways out. You need a different machine for that. Can't use a torque wrench anymore. A good tip with the torque wrenches though is once you've set it back to 0, don't leave it on a torque, because what you'll actually do is you can stretch the spring inside. So if you don't use it for a long time and it's set at high torque, you can stretch the spring. So just always set it back to 0 and then you'll have no problem with it. Now what I'm using for the degrees I have this special belter little gadget here, and basically you set your degrees to what you want, and as you turn, as you can hear, the degrees goes up, and when you hit the right degrees it bleeps, and then you put on the next one, press 0, and then you can do your next one. So that's what we're going to do. Now, so we've got it on, we've got it set to 0, so you just get a normal long bar, you don't need any torque wrench for this, it's just a power bar, and literally I'm going to tighten these 60 degrees, I have to do 3 sets of 60 degrees in the same order that I tightened the bolts before. So let's go for it. Just reset that. That's one. The first one is always easy. It's when you get to the third one, it's a bit scary. This gadget is brilliant. It really is. You can get cheaper ones. That's like an old analog one that works off a ratchet or works even off this power bar, but they can sometimes take 2 people, one person to hold it, the other person to move the bar around. So they're not great, but you can use them. This one obviously would be a lot more expensive than them, because I'm using it a lot more, so I can kind of, you know, justify buying one, but they are brilliant. To be honest, I don't know why they just can't keep a Newton meter or a Newton reading. I bet the 6 degrees will you can do some sort of math and it will go to a Newton reading, but now just reset that. That's the first one. I've got to do that 2 more times, so there's no point in filming that again. I'm going to do exactly the same 2 more times, and that is our head at the right torque. Now YouTubers, I was just about to do the 2nd and 3rd stage of the torque, and my cameraman decided to be funny. So, well, I'll let you hear what he said. Say it. Say it. Go on, say it.
Don't talk at me like that.
Don't talk at me. And what was the other one? What was the other one?
Give you something to talk about.
Give you something to talk about. So there you go. Right. What we're going to do now is we're going to continue with stage 2 and stage 3 of this settings, and then we'll be back to you. Now, just one more quick tip. This is my last time. This is the last 6 degrees I'm going to do. As I finish doing the final 60, I'm going to mark it with the Tipp-Ex, just so I know that that one is definitely done. And because you can easily forget, or if you leave it and you think, shit, did I really do that? So I'm gonna basically do it and mark it as I do it, so I know exactly which one I've done or haven't done. Just put a blob of Tipp-Ex on the top. That's what I'm going to do. I'll say that work. And now my Tipp-Ex not working. So you just put a blob of Tipp-Ex. Thank you, thank you. Put a blob of Tipp-Ex on each one, and then you basically know when it's done. Right, YouTubers, that's now torqued properly. Now, my Tipp-Ex didn't work, so I couldn't mark it, but basically 25 newtons, 60 newtons, 60 newtons, and finally, sorry, 25 newtons, 60 degrees, 60 degrees, and 60 degrees. That is that head now torque. So basically what we need to do is put everything back on. We need to put the exhaust manifold back on, the inlet manifold back on, connect the pipes, connect the stuff. So it's as simple as that. So basically what I'm going to do next, I'm going to do the exhaust manifold, which is this fella down here. So this is the next thing I'm going to do. So I'm going to put the exhaust manifold on and put the bolts in. Now as you can see, all I've done is I've put every single bolt in the manifold at once. You see the manifold? So I basically, nothing's tight, but I put every single bolt. If you put one bolt in and you tighten it, if the manifold's slightly twisted to one side, you won't get all the bolts in. So all the manifold bolts are in. Now I'm going to tighten them again from the middle out, just like the head. So from the middle outwards. But every single bolt is in. Now YouTubers, we've done that. Now be careful. You only give these bolts obviously a good squeeze, but not too hard, because you're screwing into an aluminium head, so you can easily damage the threads. So that's basically on. Next thing we're going to do is put on the inlet manifold, and we're going to put on the actual distributor here, or the ignition timing, whatever you want to call it. So basically that's the next thing we're going to do. That should be a 13 mil. Which it is. Now we mark this, so this should just literally go back on exactly the same place. Shouldn't really have a problem with it. We might have to slightly adjust it, but if we do, we're not going to be too far off. So I just need to. There's two. You have to make sure these locate. You see it there. There's two pins, and they locate inside the cam. So you have to make sure they locate, because they can easily be broken. Now that's in, so I know it's in, and I twist it then to the marks I originally had, which is there. So I now know that it's actually there, sorry. I now know that that is close to where it should be. It might be a little bit off, but hopefully not. And then literally just put this special clip back on, which holds it in place. That's how you adjust it, by this fella here. Once this bolt is tightened, it won't, it will hold it in place. So it's just a little 13 mil. There, it's right underneath there. Tighten it now anyway, get it nice and tight now, because it's going to be a long time since we're starting this, because we've still got to do the timing belt on it. So just tighten it so it can't really go too far wrong at the minute. What I'm going to do now is going to do exactly the same thing to the inlet manifold. So again, there's no point in filming it. Put all the bolts on first, tighten them, exactly the same way I did with the exhaust, same thing. So we're going to do that next. So Johnny, will you explain what you're doing, please?
I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it.
Would you just like to explain to our viewers what you're doing?
The flux capacitor has come out of the main.
The giggling pin.
The main neon drive.
All right.
And so I'm trying to.
So he's repairing the flux capacitor. The giggling pin and the piss take valves broke, I think. See, look, like I say, get your hands dirty, everyone can join in. Basically what he's doing, he's just putting the inlet manifold in. A couple of the bolts are underneath and awkward to get at. Now, as you can see, we've got Johnny, shut up. Huh? I said, Johnny, shut up. Now, as you can see...
Can you hear somebody talking?
Oh, he's been doing that all fucking day, talking.
Oh no.
Right.
Do you know what you're talking about?
He's done that one. Yeah. Right. As you can see, we put everything back together. All the wires, all the connections, the clips. There's a couple of earths here. We've done. There's a clip obviously for the actual coil here and everything, so that's all been put in, and everything else that we've disconnected we've more or less put in. Now we have to leave it there for the minute because now we have to do the timing belt.
Yes, yeah.
So basically this is the end of obviously putting the head back together. So we've stripped it, put it back, cleaned it and put it all back together, so hopefully now you should know what to do. So the next thing is we're going to do on the next video is the timing belt. So anyway, hope this helps. Hope you get a lot from the video. Thumbs up and subscribe, and don't forget, get your hands dirty. You're trying to be arty-farty now by turning the camera around. That's
Good
all he
job.
does anyway, look. That's all he does. Have you seen the... Sit down a second.